I wanted to be a writer since I was about 12 years old. I read To Kill a Mockingbird. Have anybody who read that? And when I finished that book, I said, oh gosh, I want to do that. So I kept that dream alive, even though it was a hard one to keep alive. And when I was in college, I started to think about voices and how different books can sound and take you into a different world that way. So one of the voices that I heard and that came to me was this voice of Annie B, and I just started to write in her voice, but I didn't know what story she was going to be in. So that took a lot of years for me to figure out. I knew what she sounded like, I knew how she talked, I knew the type of place that she would live in, but that came slowly over time. And one day, around that time, I was driving through a very famous park that's right near where I live, Rocky Park, which is a scene of a lot of history, like President Lincoln drove through, there were spy meetings in Rocky Park. Anyway, Rocky Park is also a really pretty park. There's a lot of birches and sycamores, which have white bark, and also oaks. And I one time came through, I was driving through, and it was just after a rain. And all the bark was slicked down, so the dark trees were darker and the white trees were whiter. And I thought, gosh, that looks like a zebra. It's beautiful. I would love to put a story in there. I was always thinking where I could put stories, even if I didn't have them yet. So that's how the zebra forest came to be. I knew that I wanted to put a story in that zebra forest, I just didn't know what. So it took me a lot of years of thinking about what that story would be. And one of the things a very smart person, my aunt right over there, told me when I was young was that if you want to be a writer, you should write about what you know. So the truth is, zebra forest is not quite what I know, but in it are a lot of things that I know. I actually have a lot of families. You can see some of them came here with me, and I know a lot of the stories of my family, and I've always loved that. And so the parts that are not from what I know came from that author's question that I think a lot of novelists ask, which is what if? I used to think, because while my father was the kind who read to us stories and told us all romantic fantasy stories, my mother was always telling us stories about the family. Who's who and what's what, and this one did that, and that one was married to who, and this is the real truth about that person, and all that stuff, and I love that. So, and I live around all my family, and I started to think, what would it be like if I didn't know anything about my family? What would it be like if I didn't even know about my own parents? What would it be like if I didn't live with all these people around me? And that's how the story of Zebra Forest actually came to me. But in terms of what I do know, a lot of things in the story, although it's not about my life, it's come from things I know in my life. For example, I know what it's like not to know things and to want to know them. And I know what it's like to be really worried about how everybody's going to get along. And there's also specific things in the book that I know. The game Fox and the Hounds, does anybody remember the game Fox and the Hounds from the book? The children play? So my father taught me that game when I was a little girl. He loved chess, and he taught us, it's a chess playing game, and he taught us how to play chess playing the Fox and the Hounds, where we just learned how to move the pieces. That's about as far as I got in chess strategy, but I allowed Rue to get much more. And he's a chess mind, like some people that I do know. And the name of the characters, most of them I just made up, but Annie actually was one of my best friends when I was growing up, my dog. And I loved her so much, I had to immortalize her in a book. So that's where the name